All right. Hello, everyone. We are live. How are you, everyone? My name is Dr. Nelva Bryant. I'm a veterinarian, and this is a veterinary When Pets Fly veterinary air travel podcast. A little bit background about myself. I spent the past good 8 years working in the airline industry as a veterinarian, and I learned a lot about transport, actually animal transportation in general. And I share a lot of the information through my platform, When Pets Fly, and we have these podcasts. I have a website and social media presence on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And I share information really to better prepare pet owners for air travel is my focus with these podcasts I've been doing. I have been doing this for the past, say, 5 years with them, and I invite guests that are just, as I always say, different stakeholders in the animal transportation industry. Today, we've got a great person that I met at the Animal Transportation Association meeting this past, maybe a month or two ago in Canada. I have Dacia Rohlehr. She's here with Paws and Route. And we have a very interesting topic that we're going to discuss and everything. But before we get started with that, Dacia, please introduce yourself and we'll get going.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
thanks for having me on the podcast. What you're doing is a great thing
Yeah.
for pet parents and pet owners, providing a lot of great information. So I am the CEO of Paws en Route. We're a pet travel, pet relocation company out of Canada. We do pet travel, pet relocation to and from Canada. We also do transportation within the US. And as you're my neighbor, and
Mhm.
basically started Paws en Route because I had a need for pet transportation and pet travel for my pet, and I was unable to get that, and so it wasn't Paws en Route wasn't born in a boardroom. It was born because of a personal experience, and then of course realized that it was something that pet parents needed, and then it became my mission to be able to provide this service.
Oh, that's great. So, how long have you had Paws and Route?
So Possum was incorporated and started in 2017. So unfortunately, my pet died in 2016, and I
Sorry.
wanted to do something not only for myself but for him. And then I was working full time, so did a lot of research to make sure that this was the right thing, and then started just making it, my full time mission in 2020. And we all know what happened during that time.
Yeah, yeah. hmm Well, you know what? And I'm going to share, and I hope you don't mind me sharing you because you had shared with me personally offline that you had a situation with your pet where you needed to transport him between veterinary hospitals and need someone to transport him on your behalf. I guess because maybe specialty services were needed at a different location, and you found that nothing like that was available. And you know what? That's not common in the United States either. You don't really find many pet shipping companies or transporters that do that as well. So I think it's a great thing that you started with that. Do you still do that? Do you still offer a service where potentially if a pet owner needs to transport a pet from one veterinary hospital to another, do you have that still available, or have you just really just focused on pet shipping?
No, for us, we started because of that,
Hmm.
and the need for pet transportation and pet ground transportation. And if any pet's ever, in need of getting from one hospital to the next, or even getting to an appointment, we will accommodate
Awesome.
pet transportation because that's how we got started.
Yes.
Uh, and we'll never stop doing that because I was a pet parent that needed that, and
Right.
so you know, it would not be a good thing for me not to offer that because the business started out of that need.
I, I think is wonderful. And like I said, it's a true need, definitely here in the United States. Different states, I've met folks over the years that actually kind of offered services, similar services you did there too. I can tell you here in Atlanta, I haven't heard of anyone doing anything like that. And it's a need. I mean, because you think about it, I mean, they've changed things now a little bit as far as transporting between locations with, say, within a city or state. Your Ubers or Lyfts might allow that, but still there's still some stipulations behind that, I'm sure, with them transporting animals. So really, to have a pet shipper that's willing and able to do that between veterinary clinics for care, that's amazing. So I'm glad that you continue doing that. That's part of the service that you offer. That's really good.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but tell me more though. Okay, you've had that portion, and then now you added in. What made you decide to switch and add into international pet travel or domestic pet travel within Canada?
So when I left my full-time job to focus on, the business of transporting pets, that was when COVID happened. And during that time, a lot of pet parents, well, they weren't pet parents at the time, a lot of people were looking to pets to comfort them during that time. And
Right.
so we started to get a lot of requests to move pets around from a breeder to their final home.
Mhm.
And so that started as ground transportation, and as air opened up, it then became, a lot of demand for us to, move a pet from one breeder in another part of the province, in or provinces across Canada, to another province. And so that's how air transportation started. And then we just started to get more and more requests, from domestic to international to cross border. And so we made a bit of a pivot in our business model, and
Mhm.
started to focus on where pet parents really needed us.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I know for one thing that's a little bit because Canada is so vast and gosh, it's huge, and there's remote areas that may lack veterinary care or what have you. And I know there's situations where um, to get veterinary care, they might have to travel from Canada and then across the border and then get to the other side, across the U.S. border and get to the other side to Canada and everything like that to say to get care or services. And it became a difficult thing for them finagling this at one point because CDCs have regulation as far as coming into the United States, if it's a puppy, all these different things. So, have you encountered issues like that, or with your shipping and what you're doing?
Well, CDC changed their rules not too long ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do cross border, and we do, have pets that have to travel from remote areas. It gets a bit tricky, just because of the whole logistics part of it, and finding air carriers, and
Mhm.
then doing the logistics around ground transportation, and then cross border, which of course brings, another layer of complexity, from just,
Yeah.
the logistics part, from air travel to ground to cross border. And so yes, we have encountered those situations.
Mhm.
But I mean, we will do anything that we can to help a pet parent move a pet, and especially when it's for medical care. That's really, really important to us.
Oh, definite, definite. So as far as dealing with pet owners, um, I figure well we determined that the title of this podcast will be talking about the fears and facts of pets being transported by cargo. What are the fears you get? I mean, again, you're traveling with folks, you're scheduling things for them. What fears do they have as far as going by cargo? Because the assistance you're providing is primarily going by cargo, correct?
Correct. We do have the odd request around helping with paperwork for, pets traveling in cabin or
Hmm.
as baggage, but the majority of what we do is around cargo.
Hmm.
And so the word cargo brings a lot of fear to begin with.
Yeah,
And so, pet owners or pet parents are thinking cargo, they're the goods when we refer to cargo,
right,
chattel, materials. And, this is
right,
my baby, my fur baby, my
right,
family. And, of course, that we would never think of family as cargo. But
right.
because they're thinking about it in terms of material, or goods or
Yeah.
chattel, the fears that come up. Well, my pet, there's not going to be any oxygen,
Hmm.
in cargo, because they're there, and there isn't oxygen for goods, so it
Right,
wouldn't be there for my pets.
right.
And when the aircraft goes up to 30,000 feet, it's going to be really cold. It's going to be minus 50. My pet is going to be no oxygen, very, very cold. And, one question we get a lot of, it's dark in there. It's going to be dark and cold, and my pet can't breathe. And so, that's not good. My pet is not going to make it to the final destination. And we know, Nelva, that is not the case.
That is definitely not the case. And I understand the fears. Again, the idea of cargo, yes. Cargo, commercial aircrafts do transport cargo. It could be pharmaceuticals, could be human remains, unfortunately, sometimes could be perishables or fresh items. There's a lot of products that can be transported. And also, again, live animals, different live animal species, could be your dogs and cats, plus other animal species that are transported in the cargo hold of a commercial aircraft. But guess what? If they're being if it's a live animal, that aircraft actually is equipped to transport live animals. So that means their cargo hold is ventilated, does have temperature controls. Yes, the lighting might be, it might be probably is darker or dim, but that might calm them down some. So that's not a negative thing here. But the two main things to worry about is it ventilated and is it temperature controlled? And I'd say yes on that. As far as the temperature controls, they're saying it keeps the temperature range around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm sorry, I don't know Celsius, darn it. But it's around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's mild. I mean, it's not, it's mild. It's enough that they can handle. It's not, so it is temperature controls. One thing is a concern there, but I definitely understand it. I always think of animals, and maybe I'm wrong saying it this way, but it's cargo. I always say it's cargo with a heartbeat. So they're different. They're handled differently than your routine cargo.
No, absolutely. And with airlines, it's a specialized group of people that are well trained on how to take care of pets and how to basically transport them in the safest manner possible. And that's all around the guidelines of IATA, which under the live animal regulations set out how a pet should be transported in the safest, most humane way possible, because we are dealing with live animals that need to be treated, with the highest level of care.
Yeah.
So cargo should not be feared. In fact, when you compare cargo to baggage, a pet is being taken care of
Yes.
in cargo by folks that have been trained
Yes.
to take care of pets.
Yes.
Whereas in baggage, we have baggage handlers, and they will do their best because we are humans. We love pets, but they're not trained on the live animal regulations. They're not trained on how to properly keep a pet safe as they move from one country to the next.
Right. No, one thing see, the difference with the U.S. is that we don't routinely allow pets to go as excess or check baggage anymore in the hold. That's not only allowed for military with a special PCS, permanent change of station orders. They're allowed to transport their pet that way. Routinely, though, most animal shipments are going to go as cargo. And yes, majority of the training individuals are trained to what to look for and everything are trained through cargo. And it depends on the airline. I'm quite sure all the airlines actually do have training offered to baggage handlers and everything, but it's still a little bit different because their focus is different. Cargo folks, I definitely know for a fact, they get trained on live animal programs in IATA. As you mentioned, they get all that training to be aware of what to look for. And also, I'm sure the airlines have stuff in place as far as policies and procedures in place if an animal becomes ill or ill during transport, on what to do and how to handle those situations. So
absolutely. They also have the pet hotels, pet accommodation.
Yeah.
If there's ever a delay, whether it's related to a heat embargo, it's too cold to travel. I know you don't have that in Atlanta, we have that here in Canada.
We get our really coldest weather around January, the month of January. It gets really cold here, to the point where it's like, whoa, we animals have to totally stop. But I mean, there's cooler months, but yeah, you guys get it a whole lot more than we do. Definitely up there in Canada as far as that. But folks need to be aware of that too. Just be aware the temperature again. The aircraft cargo hold is temperature controlled, but there's restrictions on transporting animals when the temperature, ambient temperature or forecasted temperature is, and again, I'm sorry, dear, I keep thinking everything in Fahrenheit.
That's okay.
If it's below 45 degrees Fahrenheit in the US, for a pet going by cargo, they need to have a acclimation statement signed by their veterinarian, accredited veterinarian, to say or to determine the lowest level that pet has been acclimated to fly, which is really actually difficult for the veterinarian, because how do they know that the lowest limit that a pet can be exposed to is, and this is outside temperature, not the cargo hold, because again, the cargo hold is going to be set at around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. So it puts the veterinarian in a weird position because they don't know. And if you think of how modern things are now, most of our pets are inside. My dog is sitting right behind me. And I got the temperature set to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. It's nice and cool inside. So how do I know if he can handle anything below 45 degrees Fahrenheit? I don't know. So, but be aware, folks, that are traveling. You need this document signed by your veterinarian, and they will give the lowest limit. And if they're not comfortable, they might get that limit of saying, okay, if it's below 45 degrees Fahrenheit outside, I don't know, and I'm not comfortable with them being transported. And they can tell that will define when your pet travels during these cold seasons, because if they say that lowest it can go is 45 degrees Fahrenheit and the temperature is 30, guess what? You're not flying, because they set the lower limit for your pet. Do they have anything similar like that in Canada as far as temperature restrictions, transport?
So there are restrictions. The airline has the restrictions, in terms of when they would allow a pet to fly. So 29.5 degrees, for example, heat embargo. No pet is leaving Canada. So, and that's an example in terms of, what the veterinarian signs off on. It will be a fit to fly. So is the pet healthy, free of all parasites, and is it safe for them to fly? And the airlines ask for that. But in terms of the temperature, the airline determines what temperature they would allow a pet to fly in it, and it's for every pet.
That's perfect. Question for you, because I love hearing the differences between countries and how things are done. The fit to fly is going to be a separate document from your health certificate, correct?
It is, correct.
See, that's great, because here in the United States, we don't have unless the airline requires a fit to fly, and maybe the airlines are requiring.
They do.
See, I believe American Airlines requires it. Not sure about the other airlines if they required. I know Delta didn't require fit to fly documentation, but that is a very needed document to ensure the safety. That means at least you know that the veterinarian is at least assess if they're medically fit to fly and travel by air. And that's really important, because you don't want to run into any issues during air travel, during transport. That's the worst time for them to show any clinical signs or have any underlying conditions that are now exacerbated during transport. So that's good.
And it's typically valid for 30 days, right? So
is it? Okay.
Yeah. So a pet parent can't show up 6 months and say, okay, well, here's my fit to fly, right?
Yeah, good.
They have to go through the process again of getting that full assessment.
That's good. And it reminds me too of, because I know someone that was telling me how a situation where a pet was traveling in cabin. Do you know if that's a requirement for in cabin, or is that going by cargo only?
That's by cargo.
Okay. For in cabin, this person was sharing with me how this one dog, it was, I believe, a French bulldog, was traveling in cabin and had done numerous trips, but then went on this one particular trip, and then he doesn't make it. He passes away. And they're saying, we don't understand what happened. He's always done this. And I say that to say is that sometimes that your pet could be accustomed to traveling, but it doesn't mean they're medically fit to fly for every single time that happens. So really, those assessments should be done each and every journey to ensure there's no underlying medical conditions with them. So making sure they're medically fit to fly each time, not assuming that because he's a frequent flyer that he's good to go. You
No,
should.
absolutely, and
Yeah.
that's why the BOAS assessment is
Hmm.
important, and
Yes.
um, and
Yes.
that typically comes from IPATA started that to make sure that brachycephalic breeds uh, can, if they're healthy and fit to fly, and there isn't going to be an issue when they go up into the air with oxygen, then they should be allowed to fly. But the ones where there is a real problem, then those are the ones that shouldn't be flying. And I think that that should be, across every area of the airline, whether it's baggage, cabin, not just for cargo.
Yeah. Tell me, as far as your business, what breeds do you often transport? Do you transport the brachycephalic breeds? Do you,
We
is
do
it labs? What size dogs commonly do you offer services for?
every pet,
Yeah.
every animal that's defined as a pet,
Okay.
right? So, I mean, we, from cats, dogs to rabbits, to birds, geckos. We
Oh wow.
even done like pet snakes.
Nice.
Somebody wanted us to transport an alpaca, believe it or not, that they considered a pet. So we are BOAS certified
Uh-huh.
as a pet shipper. So we definitely and we work with vets who are BOAS certified to do the assessment. And every client that comes to us with a brachycephalic breed, we ensure that they go through that assessment,
Hmm.
because it's in the best interest, and it's safe in terms of safety for pets that are from those breeds, and so it's important because we want every pet that travels with us to travel in a safe and healthy way.
Definite, definite. Um, One thing I want to say, one folks would go back to the idea behind that feeling that the cargo hold is the worst thing ever. There's no, I mean, there's risk in every form of transportation. There's risk in everything that we do. I mean, when we leave the house every day, there's a risk that we're taking here. And again, I think the issue behind the cargo hold, being fearful of that, or going in the hold, it's just the unknown. They don't know what it's like. And we explained earlier that it is temperature control, it is ventilated, and yes, it might be dim or dark inside, but that's not a bad thing for them. Um, I just want folks to realize sometimes these social media stories that you might hear, Facebook and Instagram, you don't always get the full story behind the situation. Or you might be citing something that happened years and years ago before the airlines really start getting more involved with, you know, for the U.S. If an animal incident occurs, it must be reported to the Department of Transportation. An animal incident is going to be any injury, escape, or death of an animal that happens going by being transported by cargo. And when I say animal, it's basically pets. They have to report this to the Department of Transportation on a month. If it happens, it has to be within that month in a timely manner, get that reported. Then also on a yearly basis, they need to report the number of animals being transported. So now you got to, you can have a fraction and determine their level of, by the number of animals, how many animal incidents this airline in particular has had this past year. And that data actually is readily available online. It's an animal incident report from the Department of Transportation. So you can look at those and see them. And the numbers really technically, the numbers are actually low. Um, Now, if an airline doesn't report this situation and if it's determined and found out, they get mega fines. I mean, well, could say 75, probably to $150,000 fine for not reporting this information. So most airlines are definitely on it. I know Delta, we were on it to make sure if something happened, we made sure it was reported in the proper time frame and get everything done. But overall number, I've been following data say from 2016 to 2024, there were like maybe approximately 170 animal incidents out of say 2.7 million pets being transported, and that's by cargo. So numbers are a lot lower than what you think. So it's not as bad as what everyone thinks, but everyone follows what they see on social media. So that's another say a fact on there. It's not as bad as you think. Not as bad as you think. But I understand the fear though.
Yeah, I think those numbers should be put out there so
Mm-hmm.
that people can see, that the risk is quite low.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but somehow, and I'm glad that you talked about those numbers, and we should use them as a company as well, when folks come to us and they
Mm-hmm.
have that fear of cargo. So I'll definitely take those numbers back to
Okay.
my team, and let them know that that will give clients at least peace of mind when it comes
Right.
to pets, and explaining that there is risk. There's risk in everything, as you
It's
said.
risks and everything. Yeah.
But when the risk is that low, it would be interesting. And I don't think that the airline probably, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that baggage has that requirement, do they?
They're supposed to. Anything that happens under the airline's care.
Okay.
So going as baggage would be the airline's care too. Only thing that's not reported to the DOT would be if it's in cabin, because that's under the basically under the pet owner's could say supervision or
Okay.
care, under their care. But if it's going where all of a sudden the airline takes responsibility of your animal, they have to report it that way.
Okay. It'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see those numbers too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping as time goes on, there'll be more ways to kind of get data and learn more. I mentioned to you briefly earlier today, before we started, there's a new Canadian article out, which I thought was exciting to see about dog importation into Canada. And they're discussing even just diseases potentially with dogs coming into the country and everything. So, um, and what's being monitored is rabies as far as their importation into the country, but there's other particular diseases that have public health significance or animal health significance that we need to be looking at as well, and just really just highlighting a gap that as far as the transportation of dogs, uh, just highlighting a gap. But I applaud Canada because Canada is always a leading country. Any documentation I've noticed for pet travel, I've noticed it came out of Canada. So I applaud that. I told Tilly, I think I need to move to Toronto. Right there, I thought it was beautiful. I think that I need to go there. Maybe I could be a part of that as well. But it's
Maybe we
amazing to
should
share that.
start putting our chest out there and saying, "Hey, we've done this." But as Canadians, we tend to be silent on these things.
Yeah, but that's to me, it needs to be applauded because that's and current information. You don't in the U.S. space, we don't have much current information that's
Mhm.
documented yet. And personally, I'm going to start trying to work on that myself. But um, it's just nice to see that these are issues and it is being addressed in other countries. So I like that.
Oh, well,
But
thanks for that information. I didn't know that. So,
yeah, no, I believe it. I saw some. I got an alert from it this morning, so I was like, "Wow, this is exciting, very exciting." But I'm trying to think some other things, other facts and fears. Well, um, again, social media. Everyone goes to social media for their information, and they need to start going uh, to get information as far as pet travel from myself. My website's www.winpets.com, and Dacia, you have pets en route, and let me put your information up here so it's here. You want to work with individuals who actually have transported pets or have some knowledge base on that, and not maybe these one-offs on these Facebook or Facebook IG groups where it's almost like crowdsourcing to get information. And wouldn't you rather go to the source of the information or someone who knows it instead of someone who maybe did it once with their pet, and it may have worked for their pet, or and A lot of times they give you loopholes. Oh, they didn't check this on my pet, so now you think, oh well, I don't need that for my pet because they didn't check it there. But and it may have worked for them, but it may not work for you. So why don't you go to someone who actually has the experience of transporting pets by air for information?
No,
Let me
absolutely.
put you
And,
back up here. Yeah.
pet
Any
travel is
thoughts on that?
complex.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing
Yeah.
information, but it is
Hmm.
complex. And, there are many parties that are involved with getting a pet from, one country to the next, whether, it is the vets that are part of it, the airline, government agencies, folks that are providing ground transportation, to the agents overseas that are doing customs
Hmm.
clearance. There are many parties involved, and just trying to do everything on your own, or by yourself, just results in an increased risk. And as Nelva said, it may have worked for some parties, but any little misstep in what needs to get done can result in your pet not being able to get on a flight,
Hmm.
being returned from the destination country, put into quarantine, and then you have to pay for that quarantine, and it's on a daily basis, and it can be very expensive.
Hmm.
And sadly, there are countries where, when you get there, if your pet hasn't been properly vaccinated, if you've managed to make it through, getting out of the country and whatnot, there are countries that euthanize pets. So it's very important, to get the help, because it reduces your risk, and it also reduces the overall cost.
Yeah. That, and then I always go back to, again, think about what it's doing to your pet. Look what you're subjecting them to because you decided to make a complex situation to maybe your do-it-yourself project, thinking that it's simple, straightforward. It really isn't. As Dacia said, there's so many people involved with it. Your veterinarian should be involved early. And actually, what are your thoughts on how early should people start if you decide you want to travel with your pet? How early should you start with this whole process? Because a common mistake here in the U.S. is that they think that just you need a health certificate and it must be signed within 10 days of travel. So in their mind, oh, I need this document 10 days before I go, not knowing that actually sometimes it will take longer to complete that form depending on your destination country. And then also you're missing the ability to get to prepare your pet for air travel, as far as protecting it and making sure it's ready. So how far along you think do you normally ask your clients to start planning with the planning process?
Well, it depends where, of
Hmm.
course, the pet parent or the pet is traveling to. So it could go from 6 weeks to 6 months. So 6 weeks, if you're traveling to Europe, um, you need the microchip. You've got to get the rabies vaccination. If you don't do the microchip first, then you have to start the process to then have the primary vaccination. You have to wait at least 3 weeks. And so, you know 6 weeks minimum,
Mm,
but it could be 6 months, 6+ months, when you're looking at countries like Australia or New
right.
Zealand, where it is a very complex process. And trying to do that in the last minute, you will not go anywhere. Your pet's not leaving, because
Right.
you wouldn't get the endorsement from the government vet, and your vet actually won't be able to complete the health certificate to start with. So I would say minimum 6 weeks, at best. If you can start a couple months in advance, you should. And a big part of the overall process is, it's not just the documentation. Let's talk about your pet and overall safety. You need to get the right crate, and the right crate.
Hmm.
You have to do the right measurements. Then you have to then purchase or get that crate, and your pet needs to acclimatize to the crate. Your pet must feel as though it is a safe place, because they're going to
Hmm.
be in there for quite some time. And so the earliest that you can start your pet in terms of getting accustomed to the crate and being comfortable with it, it's really important,
Mhm.
and that's from, you know, not just safety, but the pet's overall well-being, and health, because the last thing you want to do is put them in a crate just prior to traveling. That brings a lot of anxiety, and it could bring some health issues. Nelva, you're the vet,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
you know, I
You,
think the earliest that you can start, the better it is.
I totally agree with you on that. As far as getting them acclimated to being in that crate has to be their safe haven.
Mhm.
Um, and with that too, aside from that, make sure it's the appropriate crate size for your pets. Because again, I don't know. Again, I don't know how things are in Canada. And in the U.S., the crates on the commercial market are usually marketed as being airline approved, but that doesn't necessarily really is the case. They need to comply with IATA. And when they say they're one thing that's distinctive on airline approved is they put the crates by the weight of the pet, and the pet size can vary. I could have a, I don't know, a 65-pound basset hound, which is a long body, short but long body, or a 65-pound retriever that's tall and shorter length body. They will not fit the same in that crate, so you have to get it based upon the dimensions of that pet. So there's a lot of things that people don't understand with that. Is it's by the dimensions of your pet, and even some crates out there are marketed by the breed, and that's false too, because that might be the standard. I don't know, American Kennel Club, or I don't know if you have a Canadian Kennel Club standard breed size, but your average person does not have a standard size or um, breed representative, of a pet. Sometimes, I mean, it might be overweight, so it might be for a lab, but that weighs, might fit that one, but my dog is overweight and this is now small for him. So there's a lot of variations there you have to realize. But when it boils down to it, when you're getting your crate for your pet, you want to make sure it's the appropriate size for them based upon their dimensions, not on their weight.
Absolutely, Nelva. And so we have a form, and
Oh,
it
good.
goes in. It provides step-by-step instructions on
Good.
how to measure your pet.
Love it.
And then from there, once we get that information, then we're able to help the pet parent in terms of, you know, calculating and identifying the right crate for their pet. And yes, they do have a lot of airline approved crates on the market, but it has to be an IATA approved crate. And so we have instructions on what an IATA approved crate should look like.
Hmm.
And we tell our clients to go to the store and put their pet in the crate and send us pictures of the
Ah,
crate with the pet. We have them stand beside the crate so that we know that that's the right crate for the pet, and that the pet parent could go ahead and purchase, because the last thing you want to do is purchase something online and then have
mhm.
to return it. And so it's important, for us to send them to where they can actually try it out and we can see it. And then we do one more check just prior to travel because some people may overfeed their may feed their
Right.
pets a little bit more, and you might have a pet that gains a little bit more weight. And then the third part of our process is when our driver goes to pick up our client's pet, that we take another look to make sure that it
Yeah.
is the right crate, and that there are not going to be any issues, because airlines that follow IATA will not allow a pet to get onto that aircraft if it is the wrong crate. And that's the last thing that we would want for a pet and for our client, the pet parent. So there is a process, and it's over a period of time. That's why, again, back to your question, you need to start earlier,
Yeah.
outside of just acclimatizing your pet to the crate.
No, that's perfect. If you can, tell as far as stepwise, what are your steps you follow with your clients every time? Let's say if I call you and I tell you I want to travel, what are your steps, or just not detail, but overall, what are the main features that you try to cover in preparing and getting ready for transporting that pet?
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat that again? It had a bit
Yeah,
of problem
it froze
with
up. Sorry about that.
with
No, I was asking,
yeah.
if you don't mind, just share a little bit as far as the steps that you take when a new client comes in, and getting, not in great detail, but just as far as some key areas you want to make sure you hit before they get to the travel date.
Absolutely. So the first part of the process is the learning part of it. In terms of where the pet is going. We want to learn about the pet. We collect a lot of information up front, and from the client. From there, you know, there are you know regulations that are from the origin country, regulations from the destination country, and so we go through a whole process of discussing that with our clients, so that they understand what is ahead of them. From there, we then prepare a checklist of everything that needs to get done
Mm.
over that process. We collect information in terms of what vaccinations, what treatments have been done, and we sort of do an initial assessment versus what the requirements are, which allows us to then, look at putting together, let's say, a project plan of, this is a date that, that the client wants to travel, and everything that needs to happen from that date, and every party that's involved in that process, so that, and we can provide updates. The a big part of the overall process is the communication protocol with the client, because the client, we're going to be working with them quite a bit, back and going back and forth. And so the first part, of course, is education. The second part of it is, what is the plan? The third part of it is putting together the checklist and that project plan, and then all the parties that are involved, in order for us to safely transport the pet, from beginning to end, through the entire process. And so, like I said at the earlier, it's a very complex process with many parties involved
Mhm.
to get this done properly, and so it has to be carefully planned.
Definite. So, yeah, you're saying at least 6 weeks, depending on the country, but really far in advance as much as possible, so they can get everything in order and do your assessment properly. Because again, you're determining the destination requirements, and that's going to include the vaccines, microchipping, or it could sometimes it might even need a rabies vaccine plus the rabies titer, depending on
Mhm.
the country. I'm sure definitely you're hitting also within this time frame. Share what is your airline of choice, or do you pick that for them, or how does that go? Do you tell them the best airline to get to their destination, or do they tell you which airline they want to be transported on?
For the pet safety, we go for the most direct route.
Okay,
Uh,
yes,
so,
yes.
so that's important for us as a
Mm-hmm.
company, because there's going to be a lot of stress, and
Mm-hmm.
for the pet and their overall well-being, it's got to be the
Mm-hmm.
most direct.
Right.
So that's what we advise on from the get-go, and that's what we look for.
Okay.
um, our clients, then they're traveling with it, they're also traveling, and so they want to be on the same flight, most of
Mm-hmm.
our clients, as the pet. And so we try to accommodate that as much as possible. But what will trump that, will be the most direct route.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's basically part of our process.
Yeah, whole lot better. So I guess my question came because I didn't know if they came to you with their thought or with their itinerary first, but no, you set their itinerary basically, since they want to be in the same aircraft as their pet. You set their itinerary
Pretty
instead
much.
of. Very good, very good. Because you can have situations where they decide they want to go a certain airline and it doesn't work. Depending on the situation, it's not going to work. So.
And what we find, which is quite interesting, is that most pet parents, they put their pets' travel ahead of their own. So
Mhm.
they are looking for their pet to, like, for us to figure out what is the routing for their pet, how long it's going to take before they embark on getting their travel plans in order. So it's quite interesting, but
It's
that's
quite
what,
interesting.
yeah,
It's
every pet
I lo-
parent,
yeah,
that we encounter, it's always okay. Take care of my pet's travel first, then then let us
I,
know, and so
that's
I guess I would do that too. As I am a pet parent, and I'm
right.
sure.
But you wouldn't be amazed. I'm glad you said that. It's interesting to be because in my experience, um, working as far as again, these are the do-it-yourself folks that are doing it. They put their plans first and their pets second in that
Yeah,
instance.
yeah,
Um, they're second. So yeah, but that you need to put your pet first as they're doing as far as make their travel plans first and let them set the itinerary. Or you're just dragging along in cabin basically. You know,
yeah. You are. Yeah, you're the passenger.
yeah. Instead of,
That's
but you know
your
what?
pet.
But that I love this because that's kind of how when it's you do it yourself, you treat your pet like a tag along, like they are just there for the ride, and you didn't do anything, to make sure they're okay and they're accommodated. Nothing. You bought a crate, it doesn't fit properly. You didn't even think about it, and they're a tag along, and you don't want them to be that way. You want to be the primary person that be comfortable. Traveling internationally, make sure all the requirements for that destination country are met so there's no hiccups or anything during transport. So put their plans as far as first, and then you just tag along basically with the whole process. You fund the whole project, but they're the primary person that you should be concerned about, and it really should be that way if you really care to get them to that destination.
Absolutely, and doing it the other way might end up costing you more.
I agree. But it's funny. People always think, what it is. I think people just feel if they do it themselves, um, somehow they think it's cheaper, um, or maybe they don't believe how significant or how complex it is. And really having someone that knows what they're doing to do it on your behalf will save your life. So sometimes you have to pay for things for peace of mind.
Exactly. We get a number of phone calls where people are, I'm at the airport and the airline's not allowing my pet to get on the flight. Can you
Hmm.
help us? We need help. What do we do? And
Right.
and unfortunately, it shouldn't be a lesson learned that way.
Right.
Um, but it is, because it ends up costing more, rather than going through the process of planning. And hopefully, um, if we have a number of pet parents listening to the podcast,
Hmm.
that they will do this.
I hope not. But I like that pet owners should put their pets first when it comes to being transported by air. Put their needs first. Make sure they're medically fit to fly. Everything they're prepared as far as being acclimated and compliance with all the destination requirements, airlines, and really get your information from valid sources as far as preparing. Use a pet shipper that knows what they're doing and experience with the process, and it'll make your life a whole lot easier instead of again your do-it-yourself project basically. So
No,
to, yeah, one more. Let's see. So, if there's one main thing, do you think people need to know and understand about going through a pet shipping company or actually transporting their pet by cargo? What do you think would be? And it doesn't have to be one. Some ideas that you definitely think they need to understand and realize.
sure. I mean,
Mhm.
and we talked about it earlier.
Mhm.
Um, Cargo has a dedicated team of trained individuals that are looking from the start of the journey to the end of the journey. They're looking at the overall safety and well-being of your pet, and that is guided by the live animal regulations,
Mhm.
and they have to abide to those regulations. That's how they are trained, and so it is in your pet's best interest um, to look at cargo because of that dedicated team. And cargo involves many different parties that need to be part of the overall process, from the IPATA agent to the vet to the government agency to customs, all of the customs agents that are involved with that process. And with cargo, if there is any delay because of weather, and we all know that weather is changing drastically. Look what happened in Europe. Look what we experience. And just imagine, um, you know, choosing, let's say, for example, baggage. You have to take care of everything should the flight be delayed or your pet has to travel on another day. But with cargo, you have a number of parties that are working for you to ensure that your pet gets on the next flight, your pet is taken care of in a pet hotel or pet accommodations, getting fed, getting walked. And you don't have to worry about these things because everybody involved will be sending pictures. You will have updates on your pet, rather than you trying to figure this all out, on your own. It's best to get the help, but more importantly, it's peace of mind because with cargo, pets are being taken care of based on the regulations that have been developed for the overall safety and well-being of pets.
Yeah. And just to add, folks need to realize the airlines follow regulations for that. I know in Canada, you have the CFIA. There are animal welfare regulations that must be complied with there. In the US, we have USDA, animal welfare. There's regulations that the airlines must comply with transporting animals. So they're trained on that. And as you mentioned, IATA as well, to take care of pets during transport. But one thing that folks have to realize too is sometimes it might, depending on the situation, whether that's I'll just say things sometimes that are out of the control of the airline that will impact the transport of that pet sometimes that day that you're scheduled. Weather can be an issue. It could either be too cold or it could be too warm. It could impact your travel for your pet that day going by cargo, and you have to understand that. And it's out of our control. Aircraft, sometimes be aware. Sometimes aircrafts might have some repairs that might be needed, and they don't realize that until maybe that morning, right before that flight. They might find something with that aircraft. Who knows? Maybe, God forbid, I mean, it really is something. What if the temperature control within the aircraft is not working on that particular aircraft? Then guess what? It's going to be switched out. And they won't be on that flight. Have you noticed that there's times when you go to your gate, when you're traveling, you go to the gate and they'll have a gate change for you. Usually when there's a gate change, that means you're switching to a different aircraft. Now, say if you're scheduled and you thought your pet was going to be on that same aircraft with you, you have a gate change. It doesn't necessarily mean that your pet is going to be changed to that aircraft, because what if that aircraft does not have temperature controls or ventilation in the cargo hold? So that might be some delays with their pet traveling. I guess I just say that all to say that air travel is great. I think it's safe for them going by cargo, but there's some things sometimes that will delay your transport of your pet that are totally out of the airline's control, and you have to understand that. So patience, we have patience. I mean, there's delays with us too. Just realize with them, and it is more stressful because of the fact that you don't know what's going on, you don't know where they are, and that's understandable. But just realize airlines have folks that are taking care of your pets that are being transported by cargo.
Yeah, we recently had a situation where there was an emergency, a medical emergency, and the plane had to be diverted. And so that's another example of now your pet is in another place.
Right.
It could be another country. And what do you do, right?
Right.
But if you have a team and you have, the cargo folks working with, the agents to, find another solution, whereas you would have to come up with a solution on your own, and you may not even know where your pet is, and now
Right.
you've got to navigate your way to figure out, okay, well, now that I'm in a different country because the flight's been diverted, what
Right.
happens, right? And so there are circumstances, like Nelva said, which are beyond the airline's control, but you need to have a team that can help you.
Right. That's main team. And the great thing about you being an IPATA shipper too, you can very easily reach out within the network of IPATA
Mhm.
to assist you along the way if need be, if you're in a different country.
Absolutely, and that's what we would do. We would contact, you know, knowing what the country is, where the plane's going to land. We're already thinking ahead of that. We've sent out, messages. We've made phone calls so that that agent knows when the plane lands. If that because we will learn about that,
Yeah.
if the plane's been diverted from the cargo folks. They'll send us a
Right.
message, and then we can act really quickly.
That's perfect. Yeah. There's again, there's a lot of benefits of having an iPod shipper and really not doing it by yourself, or even going by cargo over being a check bag as a check bag or excess baggage too. So I definitely recommend that as well. So is there anything further you want to add for us today? I think we hit a lot. We talked about the fears. I believe we put a lot of the facts in there and just sharing a lot of details about traveling, pets traveling by cargo. And I hope everyone found it beneficial. Is there anything else you want to add with this, Dacia?
No, I think we've covered a lot today. I think we've provided, a lot of information. Nelva, thank you again
Mhm.
for having me on the podcast, and it's a great thing that you're doing, providing information to pet parents on ways to get pets from point A to point B.
Oh, yeah,
And I think it's important for us to continue to have these types of conversations and dialogue.
definitely. Definitely. All right. Well, thank you, Dacia. I'm very happy you joined us today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This is signing out. This is the Veterinary Air Travel Podcast. Please join us within the next 2 weeks. I'll be back again and share another exciting topic with you. So thank you for joining us. Bye bye.